bigger investments. When are we going to start seeing that supply side shock? Because I know $19 trillion coming to the economy. If that materializes, that's going to be huge, but it's going to take a little while. How do you predict the next 6 to 12 months going?
It actually isn't taking a while. In fact, it's underway right now. If you look at capital spending this year, it's pretty much up by almost as much as we saw all 4 years for Joe Biden.
Wow.
There's been a capital spending boom because people want to build factories and create jobs in the U.S. And in fact, it was one of my favorite little footnotes about the State of the Union address. I guess we're supposed to call it something else, the joint session of Congress. But when we were editing the final draft, one of the nerdy things that the economic team asked the president to stick in was that whenever we pass the big beautiful bill, we're going to make the accelerated depreciation, the expensing of new equipment and new factories, retroactive to his address that night. And then what we saw was that there was an explosion of investment already because people knew we were going to pass the big beautiful bill, and we gave them this massive tax incentive to do it. And so it's really underway, a big part of it. But one of the things that happens in terms of the big wage effects that we're going to see is that people tend to get their wage adjusted if they're not changing jobs in January. And so there's going to be really big salary increases. They're already underway this year, but when do you see January? And the other thing is, because it takes a while for the IRS to do the forms, the no tax on tips, the no tax on overtime, a lot of people aren't going to see that until April when they get their refunds. And so the bottom line is there's a lot of really good after-tax news coming for next year, and it won't be deflationary. The way you get deflationary is, you remember they called it the new normal under Obama. You just can't grow very much, and you got like really, really low price inflation, even deflation. Well, that's because they put a straitjacket around the economy. We're not doing that, and so we won't have deflation. We won't have low growth like that.
Kevin Hassett, thank you so much for joining us. It's an honor to have you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Fraud is certainly going to give adequate reason to this administration to force people to reapply, as they've given an interest in doing. So eligibility for these benefits really stems from a 2008 law, the Food and Nutrition Act, passed by Congress, but it's up to the administration to determine who qualifies and to determine the schedule on which they re-qualify. So naturally, there is a strong governmental interest in preventing fraud, and recent evidence of fraud is going to prompt this administration to carry through with their current order that everyone reapply.
To that point, so there's a strong reason for the federal government to ensure there's no fraud. I've heard some commentators saying there's not as much motivation, say, for the state level authorities to ensure that, and they're the ones that do get audited around every 6 months. What do you think about this tension between the state level and federal level authorities trying to make this system work?
Well, I mean, looking at the funds flow, obviously the funds are going to flow from the federal government to the state government. And while the state government is generally the on-the-ground component where the funds are actually distributed, the federal government can go in and take a look at qualifications and verify that there's not fraud and abuse. The administration has reasonably broad administrative discretion on how to go about ensuring that the people receiving the funds are in fact qualified to receive the funds. The administration is not required to just blindly write a check to these states and allow them to distribute the assets to whomever they choose.
Now, there were recent court orders regarding SNAP and needing to go ahead and pay them out. And how does that interact with the legal authority the government has to assert that people reapply at the same time?
That's a good question. And looking at some of the recent court decisions regarding SNAP, it was more about courts telling the administration that despite the lack of congressionally allocated funding during the shutdown, the court was still ordering the administration to hand out money that is not necessarily available to hand out. That hasn't wound all the way through the court process yet, but no doubt the Supreme Court and appellate courts are going to strike down those lower court decisions that purported to dictate to the administration how to disperse funds despite the lack of a congressional allocation of those funds. There's not going to be a lot of overlap here. Here what we're seeing is more of an analysis of eligibility. We're not having an argument where the administration asserts that the funds don't need to be distributed at all, or even to whom they must be distributed. We're seeing a proper exercise of administrative authority by the Trump administration to to ensure that the people receiving the benefits are in fact qualified to receive them under the law.
And could this potentially lead to disruption or gaps in benefits for eligible families?
It could, because the way the administration appears to be pursuing this, it could create a mass reapplication. If everyone is required to reapply all at once, the massive number of applications could cause interruptions in the benefit distribution. That could give rise in court to a due process claim where the administration's actions essentially force everyone into a delay where they can't get their benefits on time. That can create a due process issue under some case law that stretches back to the 1970s, where the courts basically ruled that welfare benefits could not be taken away without a hearing.
And what procedures do you think could ensure that that kind of thing is minimized and also fraud going forward is minimized?
Well, of course, I'm not inside the administration, but I would think their counsel would be advising them to set up the reapplication demand in batches that can be processed in a reasonable period of time. You don't want to tell all 42 million people that are currently on this program that they need to reapply on the same. That's going to bog down the system and cause true chaos. But if you told them a certain number that they had to reapply,
I gotta go reapply.
Many days,
Fuck.
and divided it into batches that could be reasonably processed, that would solve a lot of the problems, and it would kill the argument of any opposing party seeking to raise a due process claim in court.
Finally, is there anything missing from this particular debate on SNAP? It's been going on for some time, but especially regarding the accidental fraud and abuse, those allegations, that those numbers have recently just come out, that you think is kind of missing from the public debate at this point in time?
The main thing I see is that's missing is congressional action. We see a lot of effort from the administration to do everything within their power to limit the amount of fraud. But what I'm not seeing is congressional action to seriously change the way this program is administered and the way it is distributed. Because the number of people that have gone onto these programs just since COVID in the last, say, 5 years is dramatic. Since the Biden administration was in office, nearly twice as many people have started getting some of these benefits. And that really, it's on Congress to go through and rewrite these programs, and perhaps to go back to the way it was a long time ago when people received actual food instead of what effectively serves as a credit card now.
Well, it's great to have your insights on this today, and I'm sure there will be plenty more updates coming out soon for us all to examine the program more deeply. Really appreciate your insights. Keith Gross, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The very existence of that debate seemed too much like conflict, and conflict had to be suppressed. And this was just, it's so massively toxic for so many institutions since 2020. And the reason why I think it's important to consider whether wokeness is a product of demographic feminization is because if it is, that means wokeness is not over. A lot of people look around, they think, Donald Trump won the election, wokeness is finished, we can all move on, the vibe shift is here. But I think that if wokeness is just female patterns of behavior in institutions where women were not as well represented until recently, then that means it's here to stay and we need to deal with it head on.
Well, I guess that's the natural follow-up is if it's a natural byproduct of institutions being 50% or more female, what are the civilizational implications of that for the United States, for Europe, for, I guess, Earth? And do you believe there's, I guess, a way to mitigate that downside, or is that just going to be the nature of things going forward? Because I guess to me, it's hard to imagine you're going to turf 60 million women out of the workplace.
And that's why sort of the next obvious question after we establish that wokeness is a product of feminization is feminization a naturally occurring phenomenon? This is the position that a lot of liberals take. They say, well, the field of law is becoming more and more feminized. Well, maybe women are just better. Maybe women are out-competing men within the field of law. Maybe women are just better employees. And that's why our newsrooms and businesses are getting more and more feminized. And if I thought that was true, then I would say there's no solution to feminization, because I believe in fairness and meritocracy. And if women really are just out-competing men because they're better at stuff, then there's not a lot I can say in response to that. However, I think a lot of us would accept that in many cases, fields become more and more feminized, not because women are out competing men within that field, but because women are feminizing that field and making it more and more friendly to feminine preferences and patterns of behavior. Like if you're working at a business that is so HRified that it's like, the HR lady designed every aspect of your day-to-day office experience. She determined who advanced at that company, who got the best promotions and the best assignments, and everything was touchy-feely in a HRified type of way. Obviously, a masculine man is not going to do well in that environment, and he's not going to advance. But that's not because he's not competitive. It's not because he's not good at his job. It's just because that kind of highly feminized organization is not friendly to his virtues and attributes.
Yep.
So I think when we consider how do we deal with feminization, if it's something we want to roll back, how should we go about it? That's the first place to look. Are there any institutions or organizations that are too feminized in this unnatural way?
Helen Andrews, great piece in Compact Magazine, The Great Feminization. Thank you, Helen. We have Miranda Devine next. Go for it.
Magnificent change will be speed. Speed in weaponry, decision-making, detection, attack, and defense. Artificial intelligence will take center stage in the theater of war. It already plays a meaningful role on the battlefield. Of course, it is the Marine who will always play the most critical role in realizing mission success. Before I continue, I would like to take a moment to welcome to the stage two outstanding Marines who are being recognized for their service. Sergeant Blake Donner, the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit Warrior of the Month, and Corporal Daishimari Cannon, the Marine Medium Field Trader, Shurdon 365 NCO of the quarter. Marine Corps Air Station New River serves as a leading site for aviation, seamlessly combining state-of-the-art aircraft, training, and response capabilities along the east coast of the United States, a vital asset for America's security. Technology is at the core of New River and will guide its evolution. Artificial intelligence is propelling America's military into a new era. We are moving from human operators to human overseers fast. The shift from soldiers to machines is already underway. Autonomous helicopters, swarming drones, and recon aircraft are here now. Fighter-less jets and autonomous bombers are on the way. To win the AI war, we must train our next generation, for it's America's students who will lead the Marine Corps in the future. Lejeune High School demonstrated today that it's ready to lead. Its mission: educate, engage, and empower each student to succeed in a dynamic world is more than a slogan. The school's ecosystem of educators, administrators, parents, and students is poised to drive innovation for America. They have fully embraced the Presidential Artificial Intelligence Challenge, showcasing creativity and technical vision for the future of AI. Their dedication to learning and their commitment to our country is inspiring. The Lejeune and the New River community impressed me today. Military families are the quiet strength of our nation. Your love, patience, and courage give our service members the confidence to serve with honor and the comfort of knowing home is always waiting. As Thanksgiving approaches, families across America will come together. But for many of you, someone you love will be serving far from home. Please know that our nation is thinking of you, praying for you, and deeply grateful for your service. To every service member, thank you for standing watch so others can celebrate in peace. And to every military spouse and child, thank you for your strength and love. You serve our country too. This month and every month, America remains grateful for your service, your sacrifice, and your spirit. As we give thanks to this season, let us remember what unites us: our shared love of country, our